Biblical swarms of cannibalistic Mormon crickets ravage crops in U.S. West. The Oregon legislature last year allocated $5 million to assess the problem and set up a Mormon cricket and grasshopper suppression program. Driving down a windy canyon road in northern Oregon rangeland, Jordan Maley and April Ahmed are on the lookout for Mormon crickets, giant insects that can ravage crops. "There's one right there," Ahmed says. "They're not hard to spot. The insects, which can grow larger than 2 inches, blot the asphalt." Mormon crickets are not new to Oregon. Native to western North America, their name dates back to the 1800s, when they ruined the fields of Mormon settlers in Utah. But amidst drought and warming temperatures, conditions favored by the insects, outbreaks across the West have worsened. The Oregon legislature last year allocated $5 million to assess the problem and set up a Mormon cricket and grasshopper suppression program. An additional $1.2 million for the program was approved earlier this month. It's part of a larger effort by state and federal authorities in the U.S. West to deal with an explosion of grasshoppers and Mormon crickets that has hit from Montana to Nevada. But some environmental groups oppose the programs, which rely on the aerial spraying of pesticides across large swaths of land. Maley, an Oregon State University Extension agent, and Ahmed, a resident of the small Columbia River town of Arlington, are both involved in Mormon cricket outreach and surveying efforts in the area. In 2017, Arlington saw its largest Mormon cricket outbreak since the 1940s. The roads were greasy with the squashed entrails of the huge insects, which damaged nearby wheat crops. Rancher Sky Krebs said the outbreaks have been truly biblical. "On the highways, once you get them killed, then the rest of them come," he explained. Mormon crickets are cannibalistic and will feast on each other, dead or alive, if not satiated with protein. The insects, which are not true crickets but shield-backed katydids, are flightless. But they can travel at least a quarter of a mile in a day, according to Maley. Ahmed fought the 2017 outbreak with what she had on hand. "I got the lawnmower out and I started mowing them and killing them," she said. "I took a straight hoe and I'd stab them." Ahmed has organized volunteers to tackle the infestation and earned the nickname Cricket Queen. "Another infestation last year had local officials scrambling," Maley said. "We had all those high-value crops and irrigation circles," he explained. "We just had to do what we could to keep them from getting into that." In 2021 alone, Oregon agricultural officials estimate 10 million acres of rangeland in 18 counties were damaged by grasshoppers and Mormon crickets. Under the new Oregon initiative, private landowners like farmers and ranchers can request the Oregon Department of Agriculture survey their land. If ODA finds more than 3 Mormon crickets or 8 grasshoppers per square yard, it will recommend chemical treatment. In some areas near Arlington surveyed in May soon after the hatch, there were 201 Mormon crickets per square yard. State officials recommend the aerial application of diflubenzuron. The insecticide works by inhibiting development, preventing nymphs from growing into adults. Landowners can be reimbursed for up to 75% of the cost. Diana Fillmore is a rancher participating in the new cost-sharing initiative. She says the ground is just crawling with grasshoppers on her property. ODA recommended she treat her 988-acre ranch in A-Rock in southeastern Oregon. As the program's protocol calls for applying insecticide to only half the proposed area, alternately targeting swaths then skipping the next one. Biblical swarms of cannibalistic Mormon crickets ravage crops in U.S. West. The Oregon legislature last year allocated $5 million to assess the problem and set up a Mormon cricket and grasshopper suppression program. Driving down a windy canyon road in northern Oregon rangeland, Jordan Maley and April Ahmed are on the lookout for Mormon crickets, giant insects that can ravage crops. "There's one right there," Ahmed says. "They're not hard to spot. The insects, which can grow larger than 2 inches, blot the asphalt." Mormon crickets are not new to Oregon. Native to western North America, their name dates back to the 1800s, when they ruined the fields of Mormon settlers.
evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am Sandy Shallis, and this is my wonderful, fantastic, beautiful Jennifer, my partner. Hello,
Uh,
Jennifer.
what a lead up. Well,
Well, we're a few
um,
days late.
we're a few days late, and
Yeah.
that's the way it is sometimes, guys. So we've got a really good show lined up for you here, guys. I hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody's
Yeah.
doing good out there.
Oh,
Looks
they're
like
all
we've
out
got a
there.
good,
Yeah.
yeah. So, Sandy, I'm going to go through and give the 36,000 foot
My.
overview.
Yeah, there you go.
There
Okay.
you go. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
the first one we have is from a publication called ANI or Annie. It's South Asia's leading multimedia newspaper. So this is from
Yeah.
South Asia.
Yeah.
In any case, researchers find climate change negatively impacts bumblebees. This is not a huge surprise at all. And then we've got crickets on the brain, as you all saw. Sandy, thanks for sharing that good intro. It was really wonderful.
That was the
Um,
join the chat intro. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Swarms
Mhm.
of Mormon crickets engulf Oregon farms. Truly biblical. And then we have one from Gizmodo. Alaska set ablaze in record breaking wildfire season.
Oh, this is so
So
sad.
that's it is sad.
It is. Jim
And
was telling me about it in a little, correspondence. He's like, it's
was he?
burning up. Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah.
That's his state. Shit, I felt so
Oh
bad.
man.
There's nothing we can do other than listen to our friends that live in these places.
That's right. That's right.
God.
And then this is pretty scary. This is the meaning of abrupt, more or less. Dire Italian drought worsening, breaking records, water
Oh,
authority
jeez.
says. So this is about the Po River, which basically just kind of all of a sudden kind of almost dried up. Then we've got a little short from the Arctic News where we're going to take a quick peek at the Arctic sea ice anomalies and temperature anomalies. So we've got that quick thing. And then from the Weather Network, we've got one records may fall as impressive heat wave roasts the Arctic Circle. So we all know the implications of that. And that was
Oh,
just
yeah.
out from Monday. This came out Monday night. So that's hot off the press, no pun intended.
Mm.
And at some point in there, we've got an intermission. Not sure
Oh
when.
yes, we do. We'll probably
Yeah.
do the intermission right after we talk about the Arctic stuff, and we'll
Okay.
do the intermission, and then we'll go on. So, yeah,
Okay.
and forgive me, guys. I'm a little out there, tiredness, working my ass off outside, but
It's
I
fine,
am
Sandy.
here. I am here,
Yeah.
and so is everybody else. It's really good to see all you guys. Lightning Rod's here, Poppy's here, Kim, thank you for moderating. Gary Hoover, hi, and I think you're moderating, Gary, and Midas, Ken, Patty P, all over the world is here, Jennifer. Australia's
That's
here, Canada's
fabulous.
here, I think New Zealand's here. Hi, Jeremy. Ithaca's here. And Jeremy's going to be our guest soon.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, he's awesome. He's our personal friend here, and he's wonderful. Tina Clark's Ghost. Bella. I hope you're feeling better after Bella lost his dad. And
Oh,
Steve, I think Steve is from down under, and we love you guys. And Rich Diana, of course, we love you. And John, you weren't late. You were not late, BB and Mandy, and all of you. Rick Larson, thank you. Hans, thank you, Hans, for coming. I think you're in Finland. And uh, let's see, who else is here?
is he?
I think he is.
I thought he
Hans, if
was in
I
the Netherlands.
in the
Maybe I'm wrong.
Netherlands, not
I thought so,
Finland.
but I could be wrong.
Well, if I mixed you up, Hans, with Max, who's in Finland, I am sorry. Forgive me. Hi, Tom Hall. Okay, he made it. Great. All right, so we got you all here. Guyo Smith is melting. All right, well, you have to take a piece of paper and
Yeah.
cool
And
yourself
then
off.
and then we have two more articles to finish up after intermission. One from the Audubon. Wildlife officials want to make it easier to relocate climate imperiled species.
I'm looking
And
forward
then
to this.
finishing up with a bang from an article from The Stranger, The Blessing of Extinction. The climate catastrophe will end humanity, but hey, look on the bright side. So
Right.
there you go,
A little
guys.
bit. A little bit on the bright side.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jen, would you like to start or would you like me to start on the bumblebee and then you can get into the meteor stuff?
Okay,
All
whichever
right.
you wish.
I'll do this little light bumblebee cutesy
Okay.
little thing. I mean, it's not so cutesy. It really actually fucking sucks. Excuse my language. Although I didn't have enough time to put my bumblebee videos I've been taking on the property and the Jennifer, the milkweed has come out and they're purple and they're
Oh
really
yeah?
pretty. And I just didn't have enough time and I really wanted to show you guys. So we'll put it up because I do have a lot of little bees and they just have to go all the way down towards the garden. So a
Oh.
recent study by researchers discovered the changes in temperature negatively impact several species of bumblebees over the past 120 years. A group of researchers revealed that change in temperature has a negative impact, which I think we all really knew, but the research is coming out. They revealed that the change in temperature has a negative impact more than other factors, precipitation or floral resources. Wow. The research findings were published recently in Biology Letters. Bumblebees are important pollinators for our wild plants and for the crops humans rely on for food. That's why we need to develop conservation strategies that account for the future impacts of climate change on bee populations, says study lead Hannah Jackson, who's a master's student in the McGonigal Lab in Biological Sciences at Simon Fraser University. So Jackson and her colleagues analyzed an existing data set containing records on 46 bumblebee species across North America between 1900 and 2020. Oh,
Wow.
they
It's quite
created
a
two,
sampling.
yes, I would say. They created two occupancy models, one focused on time and the other the environmental factors. So to estimate the effects of climate and land use variables on the species occupancy, a measure of where species are found. So they found 6 bumblebee species decreased through time, 22 increased, and that the remaining 18 were stable. They note that the temperature and precip both increased on average between 1900 and 2020 in the post-industrial revolution period. The temperature changes had primarily negative impacts on bumblebees, with 37 of the 46 species exhibiting greater declines or less positive increases in occupancy under the observed temperature changes compared to if the temperature had remained constant. So, importantly, 9 species of these bumblebees exhibited declines that link to changing temperatures within their ranges. The team did not find patterns in the other factors that were studied, such as precip, and only one species declined based on floral resources. So I guess all us gardeners, we must be, putting in all our little flowers to attract our little bees. In fact, both floral resources and precip had mixed results. Approximately half of the bumblebee species were negatively impacted by changes in precip or floral researches, while the other half were positively impacted. Therefore, researchers conclude that changing temperatures are a major environmental factor driving changes in bumblebee community composition because bumblebee species likely vary in their future responses to land use. Now, I want to bring this up. Land use and climate change, conservation action should prioritize individual species, taking into account their unique climate and habitat preferences, adds Jackson. Now, what I want to say about this is there is no mention of the decrease or increase in populations in this due to pesticide use.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering now if this research when will be a jump off piece for a lot of others to hook onto it. They've got to put more variables in, I believe,
Oh,
pesticide use.
I so agree, Sandy. And why did they never mention pesticide, which is known to decrease bee population,
It's
and then
huge.
they sort of just deferred to climate change and temperature as if those were the main variables of the bees' decline. So
Yeah.
I find this article
Well, I didn't look at the research paper.
one-sided. And
I didn't have time, and neither did you.
mm.
I mean,
Oh
I
no.
didn't know. I know, and so actually, to look at the research article and see what their reference points are, and if they actually did consider it, but decided to just narrow their Jim wants to know if the article is sponsored by Roundup. I don't know. It's South Asia's
Exactly, Jim.
leading. Yeah, but
Exactly.
we have to
For
look into
real.
ANI. We wanted to pick a
Mhm.
different. It's all
Yeah.
in what the resources are that the researchers used. So however they decided, they just wanted to look at the heat of things, but there's just so much
Mhm.
more, and we know that,
Yes,
Jen. So
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
all right.
Totally.
So we already looked at that, but Jen, I'm going to let
Mhm.
you. This is, again, we do the mainstream media. What is the mainstream media showing in
Yeah.
these things? So, Newsweek, you can't get more mainstream than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that this, we've already kind of heard it in that
Yeah.
narration, right?
Yeah. We could,
Um,
okay, well, how about we could just do a lot of ooh and ah?
we can
Well,
look at the
okay.
pictures and get
Yeah.
grossed out.
You think I could find uh, sound effect to go with this guy. I should have. I did not. I did. Let's see. Maybe this guy. Oh, that's what it sounds like close
My
up.
goodness.
Oh yeah. See,
Woo.
guys, can you tell we are a little it's Wednesday. Yes. But it is they're saying biblical, right, Jennifer? So it's biblical.
Yes, well, they use the word biblical a lot these days to talk about the abrupt and abrupt climate change. You know, we're running out of adjectives. We're running out of adjectives to describe all of these things. I mean,
Yeah.
how many variations have we used of, faster than previously expected, more shocking than previously expected, and also scientists are shocked. Shocked.
Jennifer,
They're always
I
shocked.
think we could use instead of he, her, him, it, with the pronouns, I'm just going to write biblical.
There you go.
Of course, that would go along with my
Mm,
new web my new web page if I ever get it started that sperm have
yeah.
rights. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh god.
oh
But,
my goodness.
Jennifer, I hope to be able to be where I can actually then work in my office a little bit and everything outside is maintaining and growing. I'm
Uh-huh.
still not at that stage. I still have
Yeah.
4,000 projects. All right, anyway. We'll move on because everybody knows how much I could
Yeah.
whine about. And I'm not whining because I love doing them. So I'm really
Mhm.
not whining, guys. All
Mm.
right, Jen, take it away. Let's talk about how hot it is in Alaska. Jim was telling us about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this just out from Gizmodo came out
Yeah.
Monday. Alaska set ablaze in record-breaking wildfire season. As of June 15th, over a million acres of the state had
Oh
already been
no.
scorched.
Yes.
And the earliest state hit that benchmark in decades. Let's see here. Alaska is struggling through a record breaking wildfire season. A million acres have burned as of June 15th, the earliest in decades, according to Anchorage Daily News. The fires are being fueled by unusually dry and warm weather in the region. More than 300 wildfires have burned recently, and about 100 are still burning across the state, Washington Post reported. This includes East Fork Fire, which was set ablaze in late May and has burned more than 163,000 acres.
Ooh.
It ranks among the state's largest tundra wildfires on record, according to KTOO Public Media.
Not good.
Not good. Residents in areas like St. Mary's have had to evacuate from their homes this month as the flames and smoke have encroached closer and closer to their village. The many quick spreading flames have stretched out resources for several Alaskan agencies dedicated to fighting the wildfires. Quote, we're just trying to get staff in position because we anticipate what may happen with the high
Oh my
pressure
god.
moving over the state, the drought conditions that have persisted through many areas of the state. Sam Harrell, a Fairbanks based Division of Forestry Public Information Officer, said, according to the Anchorage Daily News. Quote, we need to be prepared for what happens because it takes a long time for resources to make it to Alaska. It's a little easier for Oregon to go to California to help the fire than it is for Oregon to go to Alaska. The wildfire season officially starts around late May to early June and usually ends by September as temperatures cool off. However, Alaska's nighttime temperatures are on the rise alongside its daytime temperatures, according to data from the International Arctic Research Center, leaving little respite from the heat and fueling bigger and hotter fires. As the temperatures in the regions, the growing rise as the temperatures rise in the region, the growing season has become longer as well, which leads to more tundra vegetation that fuels wildfire spread. Sounds like feedback to me, Sandy.
It does.
From 2000 to 2001 to 2020, more than 31.4 million acres of Alaska were burned by wildfires, more than twice how many acres burned in the prior 2 decades combined. A report from the International Arctic Research Center found. There are more blazes in and near the Arctic due to climate change related factors as well. Like many states in the lower 48, some parts of Alaska are also experiencing unusually dry conditions. The US Drought Monitor shows that about half the state is experiencing abnormally dry and moderate drought conditions as of late June.
I hope where Jim is does not get hurt in Fairbanks. I think of
Yeah.
him, and he had told me about it, and he had sent me something
Oh.
else. I didn't have enough time, Jennifer, to share it with you, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty heavy. So this is
Yeah.
going into the
Yeah.
Arctic news. So I'll let you maybe want to tell me what we should do with these graphics because these were from Justin Liso, and he shares in the
Yeah.
Arctic news
Well,
both.
I think the main thing to see here,
Mm-hmm.
Sandy, just taking a look at what you've got there, just only want to look at this and nothing else because we've got a pretty full show, but look at this. This is a anomaly. This is temperature anomaly map of the Arctic sea ice area. Look at how that blister swelters right across the North Pole. Goes all the way from the northwest of Greenland all the way across over to the Kara Sea on the other side and the
Wow.
Laptev Sea on the other side. So that's a blister just skating right through the Arctic sea ice in the North Pole. And oh, and here we have
The thickness.
the thickness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was something I read about this that it is definitely
yeah.
thinner than it was. I mean, we
Well,
are in trouble.
it's
In
the
trouble.
damnedest thing. It's the damnedest thing. Ice plus heat equals water.
Yes. Uh-huh. It is
Sorry.
the damnedest thing, Jennifer. It is the damnedest thing.
Yes.
We're moving to the planet behind us as we're talking about
Yes.
the planet now.
So, Sandy, we did kind of skip over this Italian article in
Oh,
Reuters.
yes. You're going, I can't get it.
I'm
So
going to read
Jennifer's
it.
going to
I'm going
read
to go
it,
ahead and read it. And
and maybe I'll put up a picture.
I'm going to go ahead and read a quote that
Hmm.
actually Jan Wiley put together on climate
Perfect.
change facts and consequences.
Perfect.
Um, oh, I think that goes with the other thing. So I'm not
Yeah,
going
that, yeah.
to. Okay, so let
That's
me
with the
go
last
ahead
one.
and just read this. Is pretty stunning, guys, because the Po is one of the main rivers in Italy. And let's take a look at what's happened in Italy
Hmm.
with this big heat wave and drought that they've had. Dire Italian drought worsening, breaking records, water authority says. So this just came out June 24th, so about 5 days ago, guys. Um, Drought conditions are rapidly spreading throughout Italy with rivers and reservoirs drying up and the forecast of higher temperatures likely to make things worse, the country's irrigation authority warned on Thursday. Several Italian regions have already declared a state of emergency, looking to free up funds to counter the growing water crisis, while farming associations say agricultural output is set to plunge this year in growing areas. So this is going to hit the food supply, Sandy.
Oh,
Quote, a
yeah, it is.
combination of the worst drought in recent years and temperatures touching 40 Celsius, which is 104 Fahrenheit, at the end of June are leading Italy towards a dramatic environmental and economic situation. Italy's longest river, the Po, which crosses the major northern region and accounts for a third of the country's agricultural production, is experiencing its worst drought in 70 years. Quote, the Po continues to record an epic making low across its entire course,
Mm.
ANBI said. The flow rate has halved in 2 weeks, dropping to just over 170 cubic meters per second. The rate needed to be 450 cubic meters per second to prevent salt water from entering from the sea and wrecking farmland. So
Wow.
they need 450 to keep the salt out of the land. They have 170. That's bad.
It's
That's
pretty
bad. Hey,
heavy.
Sandy, there's a nice little slideshow. Maybe you can. Oh, you can't. Sorry.
I'm
I'm
looking
sorry.
for it. No, I'm back in Reuters to see
Oh,
because
you are?
they're,
Well,
yeah,
you can run through this little
but
slideshow. You'll see
I'm
it
looking
right
for the
below.
article.
Yeah,
I'm looking
okay,
for the
fine.
article.
Fine.
No, just
Fine.
talk to me about,
Fine. No, I'm talking. I'm talking.
yeah,
A
I'm
and B,
sorry,
I'm
guys.
talking. I'm talking. ANBI said the major northern lakes were already below or close to record lows, with the level of natural reservoirs in central Italy also plunging. The Tiber River is at a multi-year low, while the flow rate in the Anine River has halved. The Lazio region, centered on Rome, declared a state of emergency this week, imposing restrictions in some communities, including bans on hosepipe usage and filling of swimming pools. A project funded by the European Space Agency said on Thursday that weeks of hot weather had raised the surface temperature of the Mediterranean by about 4°C above the 1985 to 2005 average. This is a big heat wave. Quote, understanding what exactly is happening to the current climate is increasingly important because the changes are starting to have concrete impact on everyday life. Gian Maria Sanino, head of the ENEA climate modeling, which took part in the project. The weather forecast for the rest of the month is adding to the concern, with temperatures expected to be 10 to 12°C above normal next week, with peaks up to 44°C expected on the island of Sardinia and Sicily. So Italy is burning up. Italy is burning up.
Ugh, and I might be able to show these pictures now. For some reason, it's
Oh,
working.
yes? Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I'm on the slideshow. There's 5 pictures.
Uh-huh.
Holy crap, this is the Po dry riverbed as part of Italy's longest river. Oh my gosh, it's like Lake Mead, the Po. It's horrible, Jennifer.
I know.
It's just
It's
horrible.
happening
Look at
everywhere.
this.
Lakes are drying up everywhere. Everywhere you look, lakes are drying up. And this is the Po, and it's drying up, and it's the longest river in Italy, guys. This is serious. This is really, really serious.
Wow, I guess that
Yeah.
something cosmic wanted us to see this because Reuters let me back in.
I don't know
Look at
why.
this. It was the weirdest thing, but it is
Yeah.
disturbing. It is very disturbing, and of course, everything is disturbing. So, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, do epic shizzle. He hates everyone except us.
Oh. Well, I
I know
guess
this.
that's
Oh
good.
no, it's good. I know this person. He's very political,
Mhm.
so you know, we make him happy even though we're giving the
Yeah.
worst news on the planet. All right. So, that then moves us to this one.
Oh.
Are we going to go through this one? This is the
Yeah,
records dropping, and
absolutely.
and I know I have that whole
Yeah,
dropping one,
absolutely.
but yeah, this one. Boom.
Boom.
All right. So,
Boom.
this was on Monday, and I don't think I'm going to play the video, but this was Canada's next heat wave is going to be an odd one. If you're searching for hot weather to kick off your Canada Day weekend, you'll need to hit the Dempster Highway and head all the way to the shores of the Arctic Ocean. Oh my. Watch Watching for a potential all-time record in Inuvik. It's already been a hot month across much of northern Canada, with temperatures coming in significantly above seasonal for a wide swath of the region. The heat we've seen is nothing compared to what might come next week.
Whoa.
Inuvik, Northwest Territories, could be on track to tie or shatter its all-time hottest temperature on record by Canada Day. Oh my goodness. So you
Oh,
see, look at
goodness.
the temperatures that could be and how hot in Inuvik.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
A building ridge of high pressure over northern Canada will allow the heat to build all week, with temperatures creeping into the upper 20s and 30s, well above the Arctic Circle. And I know that Christopher Spavins is here, and he's from Canada, and so is Lightning Rod. So if you guys have any comments, try to I'll try to put a star on them. Some weather models are hinting at high temperatures in Inuit, cresting the 30-degree mark by Canada Day on Friday, coming awfully close to meeting or exceeding the community's all-time high of 32.8 C, a record set twice on June 17th, 1999, and again on July 20th, 2001. Remember that, Jennifer? I know we
Mm-hmm.
talked about this. So this
Mm-hmm.
unseasonable warmth roasts Yellowknife and melts Hudson Bay. Um, Oh, God. Folks in the Yukon and the Northwest Territories have dealt with some impressive heat so far this year. Yellowknife's average high temperature so far this month is 22.2 C, which is considerably higher than the city's typical average of 18.7 between 1990 and 2010. So if you look at this record warm June, they have the average June 22.2 C, June 22 high, average June high is quite a bit lower. Really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
13
Yeah.
days in a row over 20 C. 13
Wow.
days. Yeah. I think that's almost like something that is, yeah, crazy. Crazy, crazy.
Mm.
Warmest temperatures 25.5 C. And the
Mm.
warmest June day on record, 31.1 C. That was in 2013. So
Mm.
the Northwest Territories capital has recorded two formidable strikes streaks of the high temperatures of 20 C or warmer so far this month, with the first streak landing just shy of 2 full weeks. How topsy-turvy is this? Consider the fact that Yellowknife has achieved a longer streak of temperatures at or above 20 C than we've seen down in Calgary so far this month. And I don't know about this one either. But the persistent warmth in the north has a tangible effect on ice melt across the Hudson Bay. Wow. Satellite
Mm.
imagery and data both show ice melting across the Hudson Bay. Let me see if this will, what it shows. I'm not sure if you guys can hear
Mm.
it, but we'll try it. What the hell? You'll tell me if you can hear it. I've got it all the way up, and hang on. I've got
It
the,
it
it
might
might,
just be an animation,
it
kind
might
of
be.
like a
Let's play it.
slideshow.
All right, let's play it. Let's just see what it looks like. Oh, 30 days.
Mm. It's
Oh,
breaking up. You
see?
can see the ice breaking up.
Oh. Oh, damn, Jennifer. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
not
that's it.
exactly so cool. Yeah, it wasn't. It was not so cool. Holy crap. So, of course, we are my favorite word. And Zach Labe here has Arctic sea ice decline
Mm.
has been unusually fast in the Hudson Bay, Canada so far this summer. And I'm going to make this bigger, Jen, if you want to talk about this graph. Let's see if it'll
Okay.
come up. Well, let's hope it'll come up big. Come on, Zach Labe's graph. I should have downloaded it. All right, here we go. Here we go.
And just disclaimer here, I have not read this independently, but let's oops, where'd it go?
I'm trying to
Okay.
make it big. Big.
It's okay. It's fine. S-
All right.
Okay. So, I guess what's most notable about this is the precipitous drop off in 2022. That red line, there's no angle in that red line. So I'd like to call your
Yeah.
attention to the
That.
steepness of the descent and how quickly an area can lose ice. Because right now we're dropping out the bottom side of that historical graph, probably going to be at a record low for the Hudson Bay.
It's
Looks like
historical,
it.
doesn't
It's
it?
amazing.
Wow. Well, Zach Labe makes it it understandable, and that's the
He's
best
so
part of it.
great.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
done
He
a
really
great
is.
service to humanity just doing his graphs. His graphs are
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes, and that's why we made it bigger so you could see it. So,
Mhm.
however, the ice on the bay is receding at an astonishing rate. Climate scientist Zach Labe, he compiled his data from the U.S. National Snow and Ice Data Center and found that the current extent of ice on Hudson Bay is shrinking at a rate that outpaced almost every other year. So, you know what, Jennifer? I'm going to tell
Mm.
you what. I think that the Hudson Bay and this gets,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, totally.
it's pretty bad. So it gets the employee, it gets the flush of the day because Canada's suffering, along with so many other places, but Canada is suffering. But you know what? We're kind of moving on to
Are
a little.
we doing our intermission?
Oh, yes, we're going to have an intermission, guys. We're going to move on, but we're going to have an intermission because usually, and Jen knows, I need to get up. So we have a wonderful intermission. And
If you support environmental causes and organizations like Extinction Rebellion, people, especially if one's in the public eye, want
thank
to
you,
cry
Jim.
hypocrite. Look at him, he's wearing clothes. He's wearing clothes and he's pretending to care about the environment.
The clothes that you're wearing owe their existence to oil.
You've got a nice wooden thing behind you. What's that made of?
Oh, Piers, don't do this. You did this to Skeena about TVs.
Just ask you a question. What's it made of?
You're going to be called a hypocrite because you live in the modern world rather than in a piece of Hessian sacking, I think as George Monbiot once said, in a ditch. Unless you do that, no one will believe you can. Of course, if you do that, they'll think you're just a weirdo. But the fact is, reasonable people, I think, understand that something has to be done about fossil fuels, most of all, about our insatiable appetite for them.
We are on a fast track to climate disaster. Major cities underwater, unprecedented heat waves, terrifying storms, widespread water shortages, the extinction of 1 million species of plants and animals. And this is not fiction or exaggeration. It is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies.
We should remind ourselves why fossil fuels are painted as the bandits in this particular episode.
These gasoline molecules are untamed and unruly.
Well, you can't, in our world, burn fossil fuels without producing carbon dioxide, which flies up into the atmosphere and acts as a barrier, stopping heat, infrared and other things getting out and dissipating in space, and therefore creating what's known as a greenhouse effect. Because like a greenhouse, which is glass, it keeps the heat trapped in, and so the climate goes up. And when the climate goes up even by the smallest amount, it affects everything. We live in a very balanced kind of world. Over hundreds of millions, thousands of millions really, of years, this planet has established its balance that allows for the life it has now. Of course, if it goes and we don't do anything about it, it will start again and some other forms of life will be able to thrive, but not humans and not mammals and not most of the creatures and landscapes that we know and love will be wiped out. And it will be our fault because we're the ones who burn the fossil fuels. And our whole society and way of life is based on what we call a carbon economy, really, because our cars and our power, our fuel, the things we use to make everything, even if something like this pullover, which is made from a sheep's wool, but the electricity and the effort and the transport and the whole thing is based on carbon fuels. And who are we to deny it, especially to developing countries, you might say?
So great is our demand that we're looking for new energy in places once considered sacrosanct.
We're looking for underexplored areas in the world with the potential for large discoveries of oil and gas. And Namibia came out very high on that list. We took a license for that area, and now we're moving ahead to explore it.
And that's my point. We have to talk about this, and we have to plan. It's no good just saying everybody give up carbon use, because we can't. Ultimately, it's up to governments.
I apologise for the way this process has unfolded. It's also vital that we protect this package.
You need to get them to recognise that this is the most serious crisis that humanity has ever faced, and that therefore we should plan. We should plan in a friendly way, a way that involves all of humanity as brothers and sisters together. And I know this sounds naive, and I know that recent history shows that apparently we don't regard each other as brothers and sisters, and we've never shown greater animosity. But it is possible, and deep down inside us, we know that that's what we want. I've got godchildren and I've got nephews and nieces, and I care about the world they're going to live in. And it strikes me as obscene. Not that they're going to have a lower standard of living and a harder time buying houses, because all that's bad enough. But that the very fabric and structure and feel of the world will be awful for them unless we start to take steps, real steps. And they're the ones who are leading us to taking those steps. And they're doing it in a very impressive way, I think. It's loud and it's disruptive. We should stop and think about the word disruption for a moment. Do you remember when Facebook started? Zuckerberg said, move fast and break things. Break things is Anglo-Saxon for disruption. Disruption just means breaking. Disruption can be an awful thing. It can ruin the way the world is. But there's another form of disruption, which is to stop the world going down the wrong path, to disrupt a destructive journey. And that's what Extinction Rebellion, for example, does. And of course it's maddening. Who wants to be stuck in a traffic jam, not being able to cross a bridge, not being able to use a motorway, not being able to get home for this holiday or to see their family, or all kinds of legitimate and utterly reasonable excuses for being maddened by Extinction Rebellion. Just put yourselves 10 or 15 years in the future and look around a ruined landscape where there's violence and unpleasantness and instability and a kind of Mad Max horror threatening. And then say, damn, it was a nuisance when I couldn't cross that bridge. The fact is, you sometimes have to sacrifice the present to save the future. And all that's being asked to sacrifice is some of the conveniences that will never exist if we don't act now. I don't suppose that what I've said is likely to change the mind of somebody who finds Extinction Rebellion maddening, but maybe it might just encourage some people who aren't sure whether or not this is the right direction of travel, this kind of disruption, this kind of fury. I would suggest it is, and I'm an old man whose time is past, but you are likely statistically to be younger than me, so you've got more at stake and you've probably got more energy and sense too. So bless you and good luck. If you support environmental causes and organisations like Extinction Rebellion,
pretty
people,
heavy,
especially
didn't
ones
you
in the
think?
public eye,
Oh,
want
yeah.
to cry,
I still
hypocrite.
hear it.
Look at him, he's wearing clothes. He's wearing clothes and he's pretending to...
Okay. All right. That was moving, and it was the third time I heard it, but for some reason right now made it more, more real. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was
Oh,
glad
it's
you
really...
sent that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jim, for sending that over our
Yeah,
way.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much. Well, I think we're going to segue. And Jennifer, do you want to take this, or we want
Either
to
way.
segue? Okay, this is a bit of a feel good because it's something that's being done, and I thought it would be nice that at least we see what's being done by, even though these things are so small and they may be insignificant. Well, you or me? I forgot what you said.
Oh, I said either way.
Okay. And then okay. I'll do this,
Either
and
way.
you will bring up the rear with that Packham
Okay.
article. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it seems to work good with that, Jen. This one was the wildlife. This was Audubon, and the wildlife officials want to make it easier to relocate climate imperiled species. So, a proposed change to the Endangered Species Act would allow protected plants and animals to be introduced outside their historical range. Now, of course, everything is predicated in the United States now upon the Supreme Court. And if there is going to be an EPA, and are they going to start rolling back things like the Endangered Species Act? Nothing has any kind of comfort zone here in the United States, but let's see what the scientists would like to do. In the Cascade Range in Washington, hotter summers and rainy winters are robbing the Mount Rainier white-tailed the ptarmigan of the alpine snow it relies on year-round. On the East Coast, rising seas are gobbling up wetland habitat of salt marsh sparrows. And on the Hawaiian island, forest birds like the iwi are being chased uphill as warming temperatures allow mosquitoes and deadly avian malaria they carry to expand into higher elevations. These and other imperiled birds, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says, help to underscore the need for a proposed policy change that would allow wildlife managers to establish experimental populations of threatened or endangered species in areas where they've never lived before. The Endangered Species Act typically allows these introductions outside of where a species currently lives, but only within its historical range. But climate change is already forcing species to pull up stakes, the FWS says. So the new policy would enable the agency to greenlight introductions of listed species into new habitats. Recovering species and preventing their extinction will require innovative, proactive, science-based policies and conservation actions that address the growing impact from climate change and invasive species before it's too late, said Martha Williams. She's the FWS director in a June 6th press release. It was announcing this proposal. The agency will accept comments from the public. So that means actually any of you that are interested in this can make a public comment on the Federal Register. By the way, I've talked about this many times before. This looks as good as any to make a comment if you're interested. So scientists and ESA experts tell Audubon that the proposed change would give wildlife managers the necessary flexibility to preserve vulnerable species in a worsening climate crisis. It's the type of bold thinking that we really need to mitigate threats, says Michael Scott, a retired conservation biologist from the University of Idaho. It could become a major tool with climate change. The new policy would provide a useful tool and a necessary tool, says Patrick Parento, Vermont law school professor of the proposed change. We have to do some things we've never done before to deal with the threats of climate, which we've never seen before. Others warn that the plan could have unintended consequences for ecosystems. Jennifer, I mean, we've seen so many of those, haven't we? I think it's potentially disastrous, says Daniel Simberloff, an ecologist at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. He and his colleague, Anthony Ricciardi, An invasion biologist at McGill University have previously warned that introducing a species outside of its historical range, assisted colonization or assisted migration, as scientists often refer to it, pose many risks. So introduced animals could compete with the native ones for food, for instance. If not appropriately quarantined, they could carry hitchhiking insects or pathogens into the ecosystem. So all you're doing is ecological gambling, says Ricciardi. You spin that roulette wheel enough times and you get some disasters. The introduction to red squirrels to Newfoundland is one such example, Ricciardi said. Released in the 1960s as prey to boost the declining pine marten population, the red squirrels began to compete with the native red crossbills for black spruce seed, which threatened the bird's survival. So native species like the red crossbill evolved over millennia in their particular environments, making it difficult to fully understand how they might perform when a novel animal is introduced. Even after years of extensive research and planning, yes, you really, I mean, this is a crapshoot, like he said. But taking such gambles may be necessary on a quickly warming planet, the others argue. The theme is one that's going to be important for a change for a lot of Endangered Species Act programs, and that is that climate change is transforming ecological systems in ways that could make areas outside current and even historical range of species, and even areas that would not currently be occupiable, says J.B. Rule.
Occupiable.
Yeah, they are not occupiable, but they will be occupiable. And this is what J.B. Rule says. So, I guess, yeah, I mean, I see it, you know. All right, did I lose myself? I got excited. Aligning with that thinking, the Biden administration announced on Thursday that it is scrapping a Trump-era definition of the word habitat under the ESA. That narrow interpretation made it harder to protect places not currently occupied by a species that climate change could render suitable, or that could be restored to provide habitat. The growing extinction crisis highlights the importance of the Endangered Species Act and efforts to conserve species before the decline becomes irreversible, said Shannon Estanov, the Interior Department's Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife and Parks. In a press release, today's action will bring implementation of the act back into alignment with its original purpose and intent. So maybe there's some scientists that are actually, they're kicking out the Trump-aligned scientists. Several endangered birds have already benefited from the current policy for experimental populations, including whooping cranes, Guam rails, and California condors. Oh, you know them, the California condors, Jen. Oh, those birds are magnificent. Lead poisoning and other hazards reduced the condor to a small captive population in the 1980s. But that group of breeders became the source of 2 experimental populations in the western United States, including a new one in May, managed by the Yurok tribe in Northern California. So thanks to those experimental populations, now more than 300 adult California condors soar free. The revised policy, could help avian species find similar success outside their historical range. I do think it allows us to move the needle when it comes to our conservation actions, says Brooke Bateman, the National Audubon Society's Director of Climate Science. Bateman cites rosy finches as potential beneficiaries of the change. North America's 3 species, black, brown-capped, and gray-crowned rosy finches, summer at high elevations around the remnant snowfields, which will shrink with the rising temperatures. Oh, yeah. The birds
Mm.
aren't listed under the ESA, but marooned on these isolated mountaintops, similar to island species that have few nearby habitats to migrate to. So much of
Wow.
their current range, it'll disappear. Relocating them to more northern Rocky Mountain peaks that remain cooler could become necessary to save the species. It's going to be an interesting future to see how this plays out, Bateman says. So, should the FWS finalize and implement the proposed change, it's crucial that the government not give up on protecting existing habitat as it considers transplanting species to a new territory. Multiple experts tell Audubon. So be cautious about abandoning historic habitat and throwing in the towel, says John Morton, a retired FWS biologist. Assisted migration may be a new fact of life on a changing planet. So, Jen, it's people, it's scientists, saving these animals. And I suppose it gets to a point where the cost benefit analysis is tipping on the scale of moving these species and saving them than what could be the negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Audubon has always kind of focused on these kind of efforts, articles, etc., and they don't look. They have not traditionally looked at all at abrupt climate change. And so I do appreciate what they're trying to do. I do, but
Yep,
know.
abrupt climate change is a huge variable in this, and it's like doing a science experiment without a piece. Where's your X variable? You're not doing it. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's kind of like the bees article, and they don't talk about, something obvious like Roundup. So, these are good efforts. These are good efforts, but there's more to the picture than this.
And that's
in
why
order
you
to
and
make
I
these
read
efforts
this.
successful.
But
Absolutely.
we read
But you
the
have to,
mainstream.
yeah,
And
you
you
have
fill
to
it in.
understand everything. You have to understand everybody's point of view. It's interesting.
Yeah, but what I was saying was we will read a mainstream article and you fill in the blanks. What's missing? We always know Jennifer will fill them in. Yes,
Oh, I do.
ma'am. Yes, you are. Okay, we have a question from Gary before we move on to the bringing up the rear. Will ECH take bets on when the last fossil fuel burning vehicle will be manufactured? Just the year, not to the month or day. Also, can we all guess when the last EV will be manufactured? That's a lot of work, Gary. I mean, I'd have to sit down and really think about that and plot it out on a graph. And
And who knows what people are going to do? They
yeah.
might be making fossil fuel burning automobiles up until the very end when they can't make them anymore. Who
Doesn't seem
knows?
like anybody wants to listen. I would give mine up if I could afford an electric something or other, but I can't. So I'm gonna have to keep and I just don't go out. If you don't drive it, you're not burning gas, are you? So right?
Absolutely.
And those of us that are lucky, or even city dwellers, can walk or take public transportation. So there you go. All right. I am going to pull this up for you, Jennifer. And this is for you. And I'm probably going to play some sound effects on this one. All right, guys, get ready for this one.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So Nicholas Money, who I believe is a professor somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. He wrote this
In
article
Ohio.
very recently, 2 weeks ago, The Blessing of Extinction, the climate catastrophe will end humanity. But hey, look on the bright side. So humans are on the fast track to extinction, and the mess that we have made will take most of the larger animals with us. In our enviable position as witnesses of the collapse of the biosphere, we can seek grace in the certainty of the peaceful afterlife of the planet. The death of the last human will mean the end of human anguish. Picking gorillas as an example of the non-human casualties, the death of the last one is also hopeful, because after 2 centuries of gorilla hunting and trapping, there will be no more of these beautiful creatures to be shot. Pick any species of animal, and its extinction will end the misery of its members. When humans and other animals with brains are gone, the Earth will orbit our star without fear and loathing for the first time in 500 million years. To explore this idea, we need to accept what is happening, seek absolution from our sins in the inevitability of the apocalypse, and be assured that the nightmarish character of zoology is almost over. We must accept that we will destroy the planet. Since 1850, the human population has increased from 1 billion to 8 billion, and the level of carbon dioxide in the air has risen by 50%. Carbon dioxide traps heat on Earth and makes more of us and makes us warmer. We pour billions of tons of this gas into the atmosphere every year by burning hundreds of tons of oil, coal, and natural gas every second. What could possibly happen to change this picture? The pandemic shutdown reduced our carbon dioxide emissions by a few percent, but they rebounded and are increasing in its wake. By 2100, the average global temperature will be 4 degrees Celsius higher than the end of the last century. This is the likeliest projection. Climate optimists will counter this scenario with examples of technological solutions. The effect of these remedies on extinction can be dismissed with a thought experiment. Imagine we found a way to meet our energy needs without coal, oil, and gas. Once the burning stopped, the future would feel a little cooler, especially if the methods for burying the existing carbon dioxide were perfected. But with the climate stabilized, the behavior that caused us to burn so much fuel would intensify, resulting in more humans, less forest and grasslands, and greater pollution of rivers and oceans. With or without climate change, our war with nature will proceed. Decades ago, Gerald Durrell, the famous conservationist, recognized that the human race is in the position of a man sawing off the tree branch he is sitting on. 30 years after Durrell's death, the human population has increased by 2 billion, and the damage has intensified. The branch will snap now, whether we keep sawing or not. The timeline for extinctions is not known, but sooner or later, the disappearing mammals will be joined by other groups of animals. Almost everything will be leaving the metaphorical arc, creeping down the gangplank into oblivion. Millions of other species, seen and unseen, including plants, seaweeds, and fungi, will be leaving too. The tiniest of organisms will inherit the planet, but great gulps of the microbial world will also disappear in the depths of this planetary holocaust. It's not our fault that it's our fault. Look in the mirror, and you will see a member of the species of African ape that has devastated the biosphere. You personally have caused a great deal of damage, and you are responsible for the suffering of many intelligent and sensitive creatures. Adults have left a trail of wreckage in their lives, and children will participate in the decades of future brutality towards nature. Vegetarians are not responsible for the suffering of farm animals, but they are culpable for the molestation of wildlife through the great net of international commerce. Throughout history, we have helped ourselves to a huge helping of hubris about the brilliance of humans, and we have avoided the truth of our nature, namely that Homo sapiens is a uniquely destructive animal that has been active in the business of extinction since it dispersed from Africa 100,000 years ago. In addition to killing animals for food or to make space for more of us, we have bred and imprisoned animals for entertainment and for medical experimentation. To obviate our unpleasantness, we have decided that other species lack the capacity for terror. In this century, all but the cruelest of philosophers have moved on from the Cartesian fantasy that the absence of conservation implies the absence of conversation implies the absence of emotion. But we cling to the fantasy of heightened sensitivity of humans. While a chicken lacks a great repertoire of expressions of grief, it feels panic and experiences pain to the full extent of its avian brain. And we heighten the horror by keeping birds in factory farms in conditions of exquisite unpleasantness. There is no excuse for the way that we ruin the lives of animals on farms and in labs, but we are pardoned from killing them in nature and destroying the biosphere. We are guiltless because animals are powered by the transfer of energy from one organism to another. The nightmare of zoology began when this fundamental rule of life was coupled with the evolution of brains and the necessity of suffering. This coupling happened long before we arrived. Sentient life is designed for suffering because the avoidance of it is what keeps an animal alive for long enough to propel its genes into the future. When brains evolved, avoidance became conscious, and with consciousness came fear. Our absolution for ruining a planet comes from the same evolutionary source. We need to eat, and we seek to reproduce. And by being good at both things, we have extracted too much energy from the planet. Nature was designed in this way. Earth will be better off without us. Animal sensitivity is the foundation of the great tragedy of the biosphere, the overarching sadness of Earth, which will end when the species with brains are gone. Human extinction will mean no more animals in laboratories to dread the sound of the opening door and the sight of the approaching white coat, and over longer time spans, injuries and illness and starvation in nature will disappear, species by species, as the planet gets hotter. This is not so much to go on, but the end of suffering is the best news about the end times. Happiness will end too. But of course, contentment is fleeting, and an animal that is never born will not miss the moments of satisfaction and joy. Humans have always caused the suffering of other animals. We have destroyed most of the pristine ecosystems, and rapid change in climate is our fault too. Most of these actions were hard-baked into human nature. The apocalypse was inevitable because the cost of being human has always been extracted from the rest of nature. What do we do with this clarity of vision? I suggest that part of the answer lies in recognizing the fact that these are the last decades of pain. As terminal illnesses encourage many people to embrace the relief that they know will come with their departure, so we may feel some grace in these end times. The way we spend our lives in the absence of hope for the future of humanity is a matter for the individual. The best that any of us can do until the sky falls is to be kinder to each other and humane towards the rest of nature as it suffers with us on this watery globe. The sooner the biosphere collapses, the sooner that the brainy animals will be liberated from suffering. When we are gone, the biosphere is likely to repopulate with new species with brains, and the suffering will resume in millions of years. But at least things will be quiet for a while, and nothing will be horrified by existence as Earth spins on its soft axle.
That was amazing. I want to read about Nicholas Money because it prefaces this. He is a professor of biology and Western Program Director at Miami University in Ohio. So he is a biologist and in a mainstream school writing this. So what he is seeing is, I mean, I know Sat 12 is with us and he's saying that this is suffering porn and all that, but I wanted to illustrate that Nicholas Money is a professor of biology. He's firsthand seeing these things. So I thank you for reading that, Jennifer.
Absolutely. My
I
pleasure.
think pretty much, I think we did pretty good.
I think we did pretty good today, Sandy.
Yeah, especially since I've been so tired. Bila and Poppy and Kim, thank you. DL Sandero. Oh, let's see. It's a little pessimistic, I think. Wait. A number of microbes survive at high temperatures, some without O2. They'll make it through. Well, there's there's a lot of a variety of thoughts. But you know what I want to go back to really quickly, guys? If you want to go make a federal register, you can make a comment on this. Relocating climate imperiled species. And if you don't like it, make a comment on the fact that it could be problematic, So if you'd like to, that's how you do it. Federal Register. Anyway. All right, Jen, what do you say?
Well, I think it's been a pretty well-balanced show. We took a look at the natural world a lot today. We looked at the bees. We looked at the crickets. We looked at Alaska. We looked at the Po River in Italy, which is drying up. We looked at the abnormally intense temperatures that are soaring across the North Pole in the Arctic. And then finished up with the blessing of extinction, which quite a profound article by Nicholas Money, a biologist.
I would say. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for coming tonight on Wednesday and understanding that I just had to go to sleep at like 6:30 on Sunday. It was one of those nights. I don't know about Friday, but Jennifer and I will be back Sunday. And I do have guests coming up after that, so I'll put up a little schedule once I get it together. And Jen, thank you. I love you very much.
Thank you. I love you too.
I love you very much. And everybody, everybody, thank you so much for coming. And we are out of...